Hey, hello there. This is Anselmo Toledo, a 3D character artist specialized on video games, and in the last around 7 years I have specialized on the stylized art and more directly on the hand painting texture style. So in this case I would like to share with you the overall process that I focus when I create these kind of textures. In this situation, I would like to share the creation of a weapon in the Wayfinder style. Just to the people know about me, my last job was with Activision Blizzard, working with the World of Warcraft team, where I was in charge of creating these creatures, weapons, armors, sets, pets, and mounts, and all of those awesome things that the character artists create. So this is going to be my very first video tutorial, so I hope that you find something interesting on it. So let's jump in. Okay, so here we are at 3D code. I'm making a new layer called just base for the super basic color. But this information, since the beginning, it's very important to choose the right color with the right value information and also with the right amount of saturation. I also use this layer as ID material, so I can isolate it some part of the, in this case of the prop, and tweak it later on Photoshop. Next stage is going to be blocking out the volume, just working out on the overall volumes. As you can see here, I'm using almost just 2 colors for each part of the dagger, just like the light area and the shadow areas, just trying to start blocking out these very overall shapes where I can just expose what kind of a volume these shapes will have. This is useful to work together with a 3D mesh, so we can improve those volumes with a mesh and with a little bit of lighting information here. Next step is going to be start establishing what kind of material settings will have each part of the blade. Just putting what kind of a material patterns and what kind of a material attributes will have each part of the blade. Like the blade, it will be like this cold metal material, and start blocking out what kind of material patterns can have. Normally I change these patterns for the behalf of the overall material definition. I will talk more about this later, but here I'm just blocking out what kind of a material attributes can have each part of the different material for this dagger. So just figuring out where the light can hit more on a specific part of the geo, and from there start to expose that kind of material attributes. And same thing here, I'm not worried about that much about the stroke definition. It's more about just the lighting information and color information. For me, that's more important. So I'm just trying to figure out just what kind of material it will have. Moving forward, I'm making a new layer called Mat02, with which it will be the evolution of the Mat01, where I'm just moving forward with the material definition. All of these working together with the basic volume information that I have put already in the second layer, which was the volume 01. So here I'm just trying to work together with the lighting information, so the parts that are more exposed to the light, where the light hits more, I'm start to expose that kind of a material attributes based on all of this lighting information. So it's useful to establish well the first stages of the volume information. So from here, the material will react based on this lighting information. And I work also tweaking all of those details, all of those patterns. I can say that like the 50% of the patterns will be changed. At the beginning, I'm just putting out those like dance and details and like texture details all over the place, just to figure out if it works. But by the end of the day, I tweak it out to work more with the overall composition. So what I mean by this is that it's useful to be aware where we put all of these details, because if we put so much details are all over the places, it can be a little bit messy, so the viewer cannot like have this like detail hierarchy and composition to make something more appealing, to make something more like readable in the different texture details, like the overall illumination, the overall details, and all of this. So everything has to work together like in a composition, like some areas that can have some details and some other areas where we can rest a little bit the eyes for the viewer, and also just work together with the overall illumination. I always like to respect the illumination hierarchy. In this case, from top to bottom, we'll have the overall illumination. So the top parts will have like the most lighting values, and the bottom part of the blade, in this case, it will have like the darker parts of illumination. I think that, at least for me, this part of the texturing process, it can be the tricky one, because we will have to deal with the material attributes, like what kind of reflect will have, what kind of specular it will be made, or it will be glossy, what kind of a specular it will have. And actually each material reacts different to the light and to the specular attributes. So for this stage, I always recommend to have some references, have some real references, and also have like references from another artist or another props, in this case props, that have done some specific textures, so we can like try to references from and try to mimic or replicate it, those kind of material attributes. Because if we don't have that like a memory library about all of these material attributes, I think it will be a little bit harder for us to paint and to put all of those material attributes if we don't have all of that material information already in our references. Okay, another step, and it's a very important one, it's control all the lighting information and also color and saturation information. For this, I use Photoshop to tweak a little bit the color of the gold, in this case, which it was a little bit orangey, and I tried to put a little bit more of a yellowish, as I saw that the Wayfinder, they used this like a more yellowish gold rather than an orange one. So anyway, this step is very important to tweak all the lighting information and all the color information. It's so useful. Okay, next step is going to be just polish and clean the brush stroke and work more with the material definition. So for this, I just made another layer called def01, short word of definition, and just working on the brush strokes. Like right now I can clean the strokes where the lighting and color and saturation information, it's more or less good. It's not the final one. I'm still continuing tweaking. I always, for this kind of observation, like to see if all of this work well, it's good to always like moving backwards or moving move the camera like a little bit far away so you can see the overall information of the illumination hierarchy. Like I don't know if you can see it, but normally I move backwards so I can see all of these elements and all of this lighting information. So we with this like camera viewer, we can see the overall information and tweak for the behalf of it. Just as I mentioned it before, just moving forward, just start texturing that kind of like the leather, the handle, the grip. Just put the right like volume information and a little bit of the details. As I mentioned before, some of those details will be changed because some of them are like so micro details. That's another thing that we can be aware of it, the micro details. But what I mean by that is that those are details that are very small and it will not be appreciated because of the camera angle and or because of the texture resolution. Just have in mind that, and this is more like frequently when we work in video games. So just be aware of that. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, just moving forward with all of that material attributes, and also with the texture or with the brush strokes, just cleaning up a little bit of that texture stroke. And another thing that you can see here on my layers, it's always good to organize all of these layers. As you can see, I have my base layer, and then moving forward with the volume, material 01, material 02, the light path, which I mentioned that it's very important to control all the, it's not just the light, it's also, we control also the color information, like if it's too much red or too much yellow, etc. And also if it's too much saturated. So that's a very important step. And this one I'm just, as I mentioned, just moving forward with brush stroke and material definition. And now the final step. In this step, I'm just going to be aware of all the lighting information and also just clean the texture. And in this case, I'm going to try to mimic the Wayfinder texture style of a little bit of the stroke style, where I realized that they have like a harder brushes on some part of the texture. I mean, they don't have on all over the places. I think that they made a really nice job in this artistic side of the texture, where they put like these nice harder strokes, like artistically strokes on some part of the texture, that I think that it's so beautiful. It's so nice to have this kind of art style. It's so cool, combine it with a hand painted stylized style. So I'm just trying to mimic a little bit of those strokes, like to put these like hardened edges strokes on some part of the texture. For this, in my case, it's useful to use the harder alpha. And here you can see that I'm continuing sending to Photoshop and tweak a little bit like the color values, the illumination, and also how saturated it is. So as I mentioned it before, I was talking about the alpha brushes, in this case, where normally I recommended to use the harder ones to define the texture, because in my experience, I think that 3D code made the texture a little bit like blurry per se. So I always try to make the final step on my texture to use the harder brushes, like the circular, and I also use the rectangular one. I also like too much the rectangular harder alpha to define the strokes. So I pretty recommend to try to use this rectangular alpha hard stroke. It's so useful to define the texture. And as you can see, I'm just finishing the texture all over the places. Like this bottom part of the blade, it was a little bit forgiven, so I'm just trying to moving forward with that. And the last one, it will be like the focal point, this middle part of the dagger, which is, I think that it's the focal point because it has like the more lighting and saturation information. So this is going to be the last strokes. Okay, so this is what I came out with all of this hand painting texture work. So now you can see the final result. All of those like material definition, all of those artistic style, all of the hand painting texture work. So I hope that you find something interesting in this video. I hope that something positive came out of this. And if you have any question or any issue or any doubt, please leave me on the comments below, and I will be pleased to help you with all of this. So thank you very much to look this tutorial, and I wish you all the best on your own journey.